Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Rachak Kodash. That belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim to Zadakim, that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. Okay, I'm the priest Shaman. This week's topic is going to be entitled, The Woman You Choose Could Make or Break You. The woman you decide to be with could pretty much make or break the type of person you are as a man. And you know what? You starting from Genesis all the way to the end of the scriptures, it speaks about, how destructive really a woman could be to a man, You go to Sirach, the 26th chapter, I believe it says the woman is the beginning of sin, and through her we all die. She persuaded Adam to go into the philosophy. So, and the scriptures also speaking about how a woman could make a man lose his wits. That's what happened to Adam. That's what happened to many a great man, Solomon. So, the woman you decide to bond with or whatever, could really break you. So you have to at all times go back to wisdom and pray to the Most High that things like that don't happen. You so-called, if you do decide to pursue a long-term relationship with a woman while you're in this truth, you got to go about it with wisdom and discretion, right? This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 12, verse 4. It says, a virtuous woman is a crown to her husband, but she that maketh ashamed is a rottenness in his bones. And you know what I think about? Like if you have a good wife, so-called, and when I say so-called, they're not gonna be perfect, man. All right, get that whole notion out your head that you gotta have your woman covered head to toe where you can't see her, nothing but her eyes, and she's calling you Lord and shit. That's a fairy tale, man. That's just not gonna happen on this side. Though it's a righteous thing, it's just not gonna happen. It's not gonna play out like that. You have to sort of make compromises, man. And we've done that silly mistake. Might have given a woman you met, you coming early in this truth, give her a Hebrew name and told her to put her job on and all that. You live and you learn. Now like, look, really, if she's just doing right by me, and because it doesn't really take much to make a man happy, so-called. So if she's just doing enough, that's good. That's good enough. But going back to the point right here, it says a virtuous woman is a crown to her husband, but she that maketh ashamed is a rottenness to his bones. You know who I think about? I think about LeBron James and Steph Curry, right? I think her name is Letitia James, LeBron James' wife. He's been with her since like high school. Every time you speak of her, it's like it bigs up LeBron, like, yo, he chose right. Like this chick, she don't get out of pocket. She never disrespected him. And it kind of adds to his legacy. You know what I'm saying? Like, wow. And they've been together since very early. Now you look at Ayesha Curry. Same thing. I believe they got together very early. But this woman, every minute she gets, she's out there making Steph Curry put him to shame. Saying shit like, I wanted to be a career woman. I never thought I'll never wanted kids in marriage. And I didn't know Steph was going to blow up. Just shitting on him and always putting him in the media. You see stuff like that with... I think the most famous one is Jada Pinkett Smith. Now Will Smith is a goddamn faggot, fuck him, but his wife, she embarrassed the shit out of him. Got put him in front of a red table on national TV talking about I was in an entanglement and I don't want to apologize. It's wild, man. These are what you call very ungrateful, and it becomes a shame unto a man's legacy. You see? So one could be like a crown, like, yo, she's on point, Anytime you hear about a woman that is good to her husband, it's always like a big up to him. You know what I'm saying? It bigs him up, So you sisters out there that are watching this video, and I always say this in many of the videos, your righteousness is really coming down to how much respect and reverence you have towards your husband, not the Most High. Because there's a chain of command. You know what I'm saying? It's not about jumping your man and going to the Most High. It's your man, then the Lord, then the Most High. You see what I'm saying? So the more reverence and respect you have towards your husband, the same way the husband is supposed to have towards the Lord, all right, the more better of a crown that is to you and him, you see? And sometimes too, it's like you think you got a so-called Letitia James, and then years later you find out you got an Aisha Curry, because these bitches could change up on you. You know what I'm saying? So, hey man. So just because, let's say, a brother does get with a woman and the shit goes south after a while, that doesn't necessarily mean he has bad discernment. These women can change, man. You know what I'm saying? That's just how shit is. Proverbs 18:22. Whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing. Right, so really, finding a good wife is supposed to be a good thing. Now, you know, it's shit, man. Divorce is crazy high. Women break up like a lot. You know, women be like, oh, they always talking about breakups, but they're the one that do the most of breaking up. You know, the numbers show that. And I simply think it's a very simple answer to that, and it's just because women are harder to please than men. You know what I'm saying? It's very simple to please a man. Woman, you know, you could please her, the next thing you know, she forget it, you know, and that it's just endless shit. You know, it could drive a man crazy. That's how come most men, a lot of men are just saying, fuck it, I'd rather just be alone. If I need some pussy, or make a transaction or whatever, you know. And you can't even knock a guy for that, the way times are, you know. It says, whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor of the Lord. Right, so if you find a good woman, hey man, that's a blessing of the Lord. Like I talked about though, brothers, you gotta have compromises, man. You really do. Just like how the Lord is compromising with us. We're not perfect. We're far from it. We're far from what the Lord wants us to be, but he working with us. The same thing you got to do. You know, you got to show these women a little mercy and be, you know, when in terms of, you know, how you dealing. You know what I'm saying? It ain't gonna be like, you're not gonna find Sarah out here just walking and shit. You know what I'm saying? If Sarah was walking around, she's not gonna be the same as she was back then, because the way society has conditioned women today is just fucked up, mainly in the West, you know. And even if you are a parent and you're doing the best of your ability, you know, unless you homeschooling, I guess, they're gonna be institutionalized somewhat. A lot of social engineering going on from the schools and what they see on social media. So it's just an uphill battle, man, you know, to breed really a good woman, you know, because from their child, it's like, you know, and then they trying to pull the father out the house. They pit the woman against the man. It's just so much shit that by the time a woman become of age, it's just, there's so much hindrance in there to make her align with what the scriptures deal as an ideal woman. So it does become difficult, you know what I'm saying? And then you taking that on, it could be even, you know, like I said, a make or break situation, man. You know, and when I say break, I mean they could put you on child support and, you know, a battle to see your kids. I can't imagine that, man. You know, it's a fight to see your kids. Shit is wild, man. You know what I'm saying? But this is the society that we in. Proverbs 21:9, and this, people might say, oh, this is some red pill. Man, we've been on this shit before the red pillars. The apostles and elders been warning us about this. The scriptures been warning us this stuff for millennia, man. Proverbs 21:9, it is better to dwell in a corner of the rooftop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. Right, so that's crazy. You rather go, in other words, you rather be on a rooftop somewhere than be in a mansion with a quarrelsome woman. You know, the best thing to do is to just leave. You know, you see a lot of these athletes and shit, and celebrities and men as a whole, they getting a lot of confrontation with their woman to the point that shit get physical, violence, and now, you know, you got a battery charge or some shit ridiculous, when the best thing to do was just to evacuate. You know what I'm saying? That's really all you got. You know, when that quarrelsome shit, demon spirit jump on them, just walk away. You know, that's what the scriptures is saying. It's just better to just go somewhere, you know, and get your peace and solitude than to go the whole quarrelsome route. You see? Proverbs 31:10, it says, who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. Very hard to find, man. It's very hard to find, and as time has progressed, it's become even more and more harder to find. You know, you might look at your grandmother and great-great-grandmothers and stuff. They will be on our side in today's time, right? They'll tell these women, why the fuck you dressing like that? There's a video, a picture I saw on YouTube. They were showing a woman in like a swimsuit or some shit like that in the 50s or something, or 40s, and like women were, and this was like Edomite women shaming her. Like it was like shaming her, giving her like disgusting looks and shit, you know, because that's how they were raised. Like you shouldn't be, you know, revealing yourself, you know. They would shame it. Now, you know, this society upholds it. So that's really how they, you know, they condition. You don't target the current generation, you target the generation to come, to get this engineering of what they have now, you know. So like I said, it's only going to become harder and harder. Your standards have to drop more and more. All right, and that's if you're going to go that route. You know, our apostles and elders, they advise, you know, it's really best to be on your own in the truth, you know what I'm saying? But you know your spirit as a man, you know. Just because one man could have that spirit and there's nothing wrong with that, that doesn't mean that's just me personally. I can't do no shit like that, man. You know what I'm saying? I can't, you know what I mean? I'm be real. You know, I like, me personally, I like having a woman as a help me. You know what I'm saying? And that's just me speaking as a man, you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna force, the scriptures tell you, force not the course of the river. Don't flow upstream, you know, trying to be like a brother and that's not you. If a brother that's his spirit, then he could deal with that. You know what I'm saying? But that ain't your spirit, man. You kind of find yourself burning, man. You know, trying to be a eunuch and you ain't built for it. Proverbs 31:10 says, "Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies." And you know, there's times too, speaking about that solitude, there's times it's just great to have that. You know what I'm saying? It's great to have that solitude, you know? And the way the scriptures are set up, really, you're supposed to have that solitude, because in the ancient world, when a woman, your wife, let's say, for example, was on her period, she'll be somewhere else, you know, for 7 days. You get your little week off to just, you know, be by yourself or tend to something else or whatever. Now you don't really get that, you see? So it's just an amalgamation of things deviating from the scriptures that has led us to where we are now, you know? Verse 11, it says, "The heart of her husband does safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life." You know, and when you see that, it's like, it's a beautiful thing to see, man. You know, and every time I see my grandfather and my grandmother, I'd be like, it's a beautiful thing to see, you know, because these people are old school, man. Third world country. I've never seen my grandmother wear pants. I've never seen her in my life argue with my grandfather. Like, these things are like, damn, you know, it's a beautiful thing to see. You see? So in the kingdom, that's just gonna be the norm, you know. Right now, that's like seeing a goddamn unicorn or some shit, you know. But in the kingdom, that's just gonna be the standard, and you're gonna have multiple wives, man. Okay, big families. How things are supposed to be. How the Lord wanted things to be. Us being fruitful and multiplying, man. Proverbs 27:15, it says, "A continual dropping in a very rainy day and a contentious woman are alike." Continuous dropping is erosion, man. That's what water does. It causes, you know, if it continues to drop, it causes things to erode and break down. This is what happens when you have a contentious woman prolonged. Breaks you down, fucks you up, man. You know, and it's like a story as old as time, man. You know, these guys pick these contentious women because they prioritize maybe their beauty and end up getting fucked. You know what I'm saying? So let me go to Sirach 26. I could read that, a couple verses, and then close it out, I guess. Proverbs 26:1. Blessed is the man that hath a virtuous wife, for the number of his days shall be double. Less stress. Less stress. Hey man, you get a good woman that could cook and clean. That's really what men want. You know what I'm saying? Cook. Like, for the sisters that are watching, right? Put a little secret how men brain work. You know, men look at women like two different ways. You know, you could be like, a man could get turned on by some chick shaking her ass or whatever in a club or some shit like that, right? That turn on is for short term, typically, right? You know, you think of short term things, how you gonna twist her up, bust it up. That's what the men is thinking. Don't you know a man could also look at a woman, let's say, folding clothes or doing some sort of task or submissiveness? That's also a turn on. Why do you think the so-called boss always bangs the secretary or some shit? You know, because the secretary, she doesn't have to be some hot secretary, but that whole submissive, you know, that also works for men. You know, so that's how come you can see a man, he could have like a million options, right? He could be like a celebrity and he bangs models and all that, but then he settles down with a woman that doesn't necessarily, might not look like a model, but guess what? She has that submissive long-term attraction is there. You see what I'm saying? So submissiveness is big, man. You know, like I said, this is what we will look for. Ideally, you might find it, and then a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, it could be a whole different ball game. You know what I'm saying? Now you're like, damn, this is not what the fuck I signed up for. What's going on here? Sirach 26:1. Blessed is the man that hath a virtuous wife, for the number of his days shall be double. It says, a virtuous woman rejoiceth her husband, and he shall fulfill the years of his life in peace. A good wife is a good portion, which shall be given in the portion of them that fear the Lord. Like I said, we fear the Most High, we can still get hit with some rotten apples, all right? We're under the curses. You know, that's another thing we have to factor in there. 4, whether a man be rich or poor, if he have a good heart towards the Lord, he shall at all times rejoice with a cheerful countenance. So there's 1,000,001 scriptures you could hit when it comes to topics like this. There's 1,000,001 videos you can do when it comes to topics like this. Wow. Dude just blew the fucking stop sign. But I hope you brothers are edified, your sisters are edified. I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashim Rachak Wadash, that belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutation to the whole field elect out there, you Akim to Zadakim, that do the singing in the utmost truth and sincerity. Shalom.